AM 1480 WLEA.
It's Brian O'Neill. I'll be filling in on the Newsmaker Show again, in for Kevin Dorn. On the line with us today will be Assemblyman Phil Palmesano.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Assemblyman, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's good to be with you again, Brian.
Assemblyman NYSUT, the state teachers union, they filed a lawsuit over the state's 2% property tax cap and the new tax freeze. I guess the way I should say it is they filed an amendment to their lawsuit. They had originally sued over the 2% property tax cap. Now they're saying they want to combine a lawsuit about the tax freeze and the tax cap. NYSUT says the tax freeze really kind of is twisting the voters' arms into supporting the tax cap, and that those school district voters who want to override the tax cap should not be punished. Assemblyman, you originally voted for the tax cap, but later you said that Governor Andrew Cuomo promised mandate relief that never happened. Your thoughts on this NYSUT lawsuit?
Well, Brian, I think it kind of goes into the same direction of their original lawsuit, and you're right. The governor did promise mandate relief, and although we have accomplished some items, there's certainly a lot more that we could be doing to help our local governments and our school districts. The fact of the matter is, with this tax freeze, and we were pushing to make some changes, which we were ultimately able to do to the proposal, but still, this was obviously a priority of the governor's, along with this tax cap. But the fact of the matter is, we could talk about tax freezes and tax caps as much as we want, but until we get at the true cost drivers that are driving up local school district and local municipal budgets, which are the unfunded mandates, we're never going to really get at the root cause of the problem. And that's why I, along with Senator O'Mara, continue to push for more mandate relief for our municipalities and our local school districts. But I certainly understand where the suit's coming from, and certainly I think everyone's going to be watching to see which way this goes as things move forward.
The education tax credit for religious schools.
Well, I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, Brian. It's a good bill. It has provisions for obviously private and parochial schools and religious schools, obviously, but there's also provisions for the public school system as well. I know the sponsor of the bill, Michael Klusick from Staten Island, has been working real hard to try to build support. There's I want to say almost over 90 maybe sponsors on the bill. There's quite a bit of sponsors on the bill. I could be wrong on that, but there's quite a bit of sponsors, both bipartisan support. There was some talk of it being done as part of the budget. Unfortunately, that did not happen. But I think it's a good bill. I think it's certainly the right thing to do for a number of areas. But we're obviously into the last 2 weeks of our legislative session. It may be difficult to do just because of the fiscal impact to the bill, but I think, knowing people who are pushing for the bill, I think it's something that I'd like to see happen. It's something that can happen, but, it might be difficult given there's a fiscal attachment to it, and a lot of times that's done during the budgetary discussion. But, we're in the final 2 weeks of session. Anything can happen, and there's a lot of issues that are going to be discussed as we move forward towards these last 2 weeks. A lot of times bills are getting put in and lumped in with other bills. Sometimes they call it the big ugly, where they lump a bunch of different bills together near the end of session. But I'm not sure where that's going to head this year, because there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of positioning by the governor recently with some comments he's made. So I don't know how that's going to work to make for a productive end of session with some of the things he's been talking about.
Assemblyman Palmesano, Rochester and Buffalo media outlets are reporting that a study that was based on the U.S. Census for those two cities show that Rochester is the third poorest city in the USA and that Buffalo is the fourth. Now, it goes without saying that those cities are not in your district, but any reaction to that news?
Well, I think obviously you've seen an exodus of people leaving the city. Jobs. I mean, Kodak, went through a big revamping, and it was in very difficult shape. Still not where it was, the employment levels that it used to be. And same thing with Buffalo. And when you lose opportunities, when you lose job growth, and in the cities, whether it's a big city or small city, they're being challenged by some of these unfunded mandates that we continue to talk about. The way to help these problems is through economic development and job creation. And what it kind of gets to the fundamental root of the problem that we continue to talk about. If we're not encouraging private sector investment, whether it's in cities like Buffalo or Rochester or cities like Cornell and Corning, we're not going to have opportunities for our young people to stay and businesses to stay and grow here, and they're going to continue to leave. And when that happens, there's no opportunity, there's no educational opportunities, there's high unemployment rate, high taxes, high regulations. All you're going to have is crime, and so it doesn't surprise me you have that correlation. If we had a more aggressive economic development and job creation policy and trying to work in these areas, maybe we can address some of those problems that are happening in cities like Rochester and Buffalo. But that's the concern I have, because you see over and over again, and I hate to bring it back to economics a lot, but it's really kind of cyclical. You can run all the commercials you want saying you're open for business.
That was my next question. I can just hear Dicker or No Jay asking the obvious question on their shows about those Cuomo TV ads that are running nationwide with this news about the Rochester and Buffalo poverty levels.
Right. I mean, listen, there's definitely people that are not benefiting when you don't have those jobs for people. I mean, because a lot of times they want to go after the employers and the job creators with higher regulations and higher taxes. But these are the people that provide the jobs, whether they're entry level, whether they're middle level jobs or low and high skill jobs. You need someone to make that private sector investment back in the economy, to take that risk with capital, and to have confidence in the economy. What you're seeing is a lot of people not having confidence in our economy, especially in upstate New York, because of the jobs and the taxes and the regulations. And I think we need to do more to encourage that private sector investment. And even with the budget process, I said there were some positive steps, but it's clearly not enough. We need to be much more aggressive and bold in that area. That all comes back to that. I think those are when you have that type of investment, when you turn this economy around, we won't be 50th or 49th. Maybe we'll be 20th. I don't want to just move up 2 spots. I want to be more. I want to be higher up on the level as far as business climate. But the fact of the matter is, it's not, and it's a struggle. And we need to. That's why I continue to go back on the economic side. That we need to be more aggressive on our tax and regulatory relief, because that's going to spur private sector investment, which will spur economic activity in our upstate economy, which will spur job creation in upstate, which will help bring us more revenue from the extra jobs that can fund our important programs in our cities or in our towns and villages and counties, like education or road and bridge repair and things of that nature. But we have a long way to go, and I'm going to continue to speak out about it, because we can't just keep painting a rosy picture. And going back to those commercials, you can run all the commercials you want saying we're open for business and we're business friendly, but the business people, you talk to the business person on Main Street in Hornell or someplace else in the community, they don't watch what we say, they watch what we do, and the actions aren't backing up our words on some of these policies.
If we could get back to education for just a moment, last week's Common Core testing, CapitalNewYork.com said there were less complaints about that series of Common Core tests last week than to test before that. Was that your experience at the Assembly office, Assemblyman Palmesano? Did you get less complaints last week about the test than you might have before?
I don't know if it's less complaints or not, but the fact of the matter is, Brian, this issue is not going away. I assure the listeners and the people and the families and parents, and teachers, this issue is not going away. Although there were some changes made through the budget process, and quite frankly, I think our conference has helped drive a lot of those changes, because we were the ones that had 11 hearings throughout the state when Commissioner King was just thumbing his nose at the parents and the teachers and the students, saying he knew best. Which we forced change. We even forced the governor to start talking about this issue. But I think a lot of people think that they made some changes and modifications in the budget. But the fact of the matter is, we're still doing all these exhaustive testing on our kids. We're still evaluating teachers by the grades these kids get on the test. We're not having any understanding or dealing with IEPs for our special education students and special needs students. So this issue is not going away. I know there's going to be a rally up here in Albany in a couple of weeks about this Common Core in general, and I'm curious to see how many people come up. There's been a lot of people that have been exempting or pulling out from the tests as well. And I think it's going to be an election year issue, too. For obviously the governor and Rob Astorino have been talking about this issue. Rob Astorino has, and I think a lot of people think that this issue is going away. I assure you it's not. When you have, put it this way, when you have 300 people show up in an auditorium in Corning, New York, in December, and testify, 40 people testify for over 5 hours, voicing concerns and complaints. These are teachers, these are students, these are members of the community. There's no game going on here. There's some serious concerns, and we've been trying to respond to a number of these, and we have forced some changes, but we have a long way to go, I think, as far as trying to take back control of our state's education system instead of allowing people in Washington to dictate that policy. And I want to continue to speak out on it, and I'm going to continue to be a voice for the parents, teachers, and students who have voiced concerns about this issue.
We're talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmesano here on the Newsmaker Show. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Dorn. When we get back, we'll talk about the politics of videos made by Chemung County Sheriff Lieutenant Governor candidate Christopher Moss and supporters of Rob Astorino, plus the Freedom of Information requests made of Governor Cuomo's aides regarding fracking. We'll be back in just a moment here on AM 1480 WLEA. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Dorn this morning on the Newsmaker Show on Today with Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Assemblyman, a Quinnipiac poll came out last month on the governor's race. That's the most recent one I'm aware of. It showed that Cuomo's at 57, Astorino 33. Your thoughts on the polls, the way the questions are asked, and what do you think Astorino's chances are?
Well, Brian, I mean, obviously a poll is a snapshot in time. And, Rob Astorino was just a little over a month ago nominated as our candidate for governor. And since that time, he's been really active traveling around the state. And not just going, especially upstate, not just going to big areas like Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse. He's been, I think, to Angelica. He's been to Benton. He's been to Penn Yan. He's been to Corning. We walked the streets of Corning with him one day. I mean, so he's out and about, and he's working really hard. Listen, the election happens in November. Does Rob Astorino have a big task in front of him? Of course. When we have a sitting Democratic governor, incumbent governor who has $33 million in the bank, when we have people trying to attack Rob Astorino and his running mate altogether right away, this to me, it looks like people that are afraid, because Rob Astorino is a very smart, intelligent guy. His lieutenant governor candidate, Sheriff Christopher Moss, is a great person, great family guy, and a leader across this state. And I think what we're going to see is a spirited campaign. The thing Rob needs to do, obviously, is raise some money to get his name idea out there, but he's traveling around the state. He's listening. He governs in a blue county, Democratic county, 2-1 Democratic county in Westchester, and he's won there twice. He knows the issues of reducing spending and dealing with the unfunded mandate. He's not going to vilify local officials. He's going to try to work with local officials to deal with these challenges they're facing. And I think he understands that we need to have private sector investment back in the economy to create jobs. So, listen, it's an undertaking. Rob's working real hard, traveling around the state. So is Sheriff Moss, and we've seen him at different events passing. And it's a long way to November, but obviously people aren't really, I don't think, engaged in that type of governor's race yet, but people are out there working and putting the network in place, and I know Rob Astorino is doing that, and I do think Rob Astorino can win this election. I have no doubt he can win this election, because if you look at the issues that are going on, I think it's a year with the SAFE Act and the enthusiasm around the Democratic Party with some of the issues, whether it's public employees unions and what the governor has done to some of the public employees unions and the teachers, and issues like Common Core. I think this certainly has a chance for Rob Astorino. He's a good guy, and he's smart. He gets it, and he's been traveling. He understands the needs of upstate, and he listens. So it's a long way to November, and we'll see what happens as things progress. But he certainly has an opportunity and chance to win this election, no doubt about it.
Last week on Astorino supporters put out a video that tied World War II's D-Day invasion to the governor's race. The video was not made by Astorino's campaign, but Astorino supporters. The video called Cuomo a tyrant and showed, kind of tied in with D-Day and the invasion there. Astorino's office was not entirely comfortable with that. They said whoever made the video should be more careful with the imagery. Then a story came out over the weekend about Republican Lieutenant Governor candidate Chemung County Sheriff Christopher Moss. It turned out back in March he made a political parody video for a private political get-together. It was an awards ceremony. The parody video that Moss made apparently poked fun at Moss's opponent in the last sheriff's race back in November. Now, in this story, which was broken by Gannett, the Chemung County DA comes out against Moss, which was kind of surprising. Moss maintains and the reporters were not able to find any evidence to contradict Moss's claim that no taxpayer money was used to make this little parody video. Sheriff Moss says that the Chemung County DA Brian Maggs should not have taken sides against the sheriff in this one because the DA is supposed to represent the sheriff, not a candidate. And Moss says, look, this was only shown at a political awards ceremony. It was a private get-together. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the Internet. Your take on that story, Assemblyman Palmesano?
Well, I think, I don't know all the specific details surrounding the dinner and the case and all that. And from what I've understood and what I ran, it was, like you said, a private get-together. But the fact of the matter is, Sheriff Chris Moss is a leader. When he ran in a race, he won the 10-1. He's recognized as a leader across the state. He was president of the State Sheriff's Association. To me, Brian, all this signifies is trying to throw mud, to try to get negative opinions towards people. And you know what? Sheriff Moss is a great guy with good integrity. And listen, this thing should blow over because this is just, to me, when you have these types of things go on, it's kind of an act of desperation. It's kind of realizing that you have people with Rob Astorino and Chris Moss who are going to be formidable, who are knowledgeable on the issues, and who are going to be out there campaigning for every vote and talking to the people around the state of the need to address these issues that are out there. So I don't really pay a lot of credence to the story. Like I said, you mentioned it was a private event. There was no taxpayer dollars involved, and sometimes you have these types of things, but roastings and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, people are putting this out because they're trying to do damage to our ticket, and I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think the people are smarter than that.
Now, that report came from Gannett. Gannett also reported that their news outlet made a Freedom of Information request to get their hands on documents, notes of conversations between the governor's top aides and DEC head Joe Martens, as well as former State Health Commissioner Dr. Shaw. Gannett Media says that when they got the documents back, that the notes about the conversations, a lot of it was marked off with a marker, so you could not read it. Assemblyman, reporters getting redacted documents back from this open administration, what does this say to you?
Well, I think what it says to me, I don't know for a fact, but I think a lot of this kind of just signifies what a lot of us really kind of think, maybe to ourselves, and have commented. We think that obviously there's discussions going on between the different chambers and the departments. The fact of the matter is, it's been over 5 years since the decision on fracking has been made. We've been in a moratorium ever since then. We're missing a tremendous opportunity. We believe the study is done. Listen, I've always said I'm not an expert. I'm not a hydrologist. I'm not an engineer. That's what we have the people at DEC to make these reviews. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think anyone out there thinks they have all the information. They have 5 years worth of information and time. So I think they're just sitting on it. I think they're sitting on it until after the election, because the fact of the matter is, they don't want to make a decision one way or another, because obviously you can upset one group of people or another. The fact of the matter is, leadership's about making decisions, and I think a decision needs to be made. And I think when you see those types of reports, I think it just kind of signifies what a lot of people think, that the administration is in communication with the people making the decision, although they say they're just going to let them do their job. So obviously they're getting feedback about what's going on, and could be weighing in one way or another to say, take your time or not. And it's these types of things that kind of give people a lot of frustration with the decision. Even whether you're for or against fracking, I think people realize the decision should be being made, and that's part of the frustration with this whole process.
And final question for you, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Now, Rob Astorino, the Republican candidate for governor, he argues that Governor Cuomo has put a surcharge on electricity bills that just turns into a Cuomo slush fund.
I don't know the specifics about what specific surcharge he's talking about and where it's going. But as the ranker on energy, what I can tell you and the listeners, that the amount of fees and surcharges that are placed on your utility bill, your utility bill at home, when you look at it, and it certainly was very high this winter with the harsh winter we had, a third of it is about your supply, the power that comes, and that's basically just a pass-through from the power suppliers through the energy company, through the utility to you. Then a third of it is delivery and transmission, so that's the fee that the utility charges the homeowner to transmit the energy from the part to place to place. And a third of it is taxes and fees. I think some estimates over $6 billion in taxes and fees on your energy bill. and this is a lot of it's being used to promote renewable energies, clean energy, green energy. A lot's being done for things like net metering, which I've been very critical of, because the fact of the matter is when you do net metering, you create these ideas and ways for people to create power, which I think creating power is a good thing. But with net metering, it basically shifts the costs for the individual who might not have put a windmill or a solar panel on the roof over to someone who pays a utility bill, and then it charges them. It's a cost shift. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if it's along those lines. But the fact of the matter is, your energy bill, when you look at it, your utility bill, a third of it is generally taxes and fees, across the board. It's absolutely burdensome, and you wonder why we have some of the highest energy costs in the state of New York.
Assemblyman Phil Palmesano, I want to thank you very much for coming on this morning.
My pleasure, Brian.
News is next on AM 1480 WLEA Hornet.